Hey, Mike. How are you? How's things?
Good, man. Thanks
Good,
for having
good.
me on.
Thanks for coming on the show. Yeah, really appreciate your time. So you're in LA at the moment, right?
Yep.
And how's it all been going? There's been a few big announcements recently, and
Yeah.
with
Yeah. It's been, definitely been a crazy past couple of weeks. A lot of stuff happening. We closed our Series D round, and then we launched our Martha Stewart collaboration candle. Um, yeah, just a lot of stuff happening right now. I mean, obviously, for us as a brand, October and Halloween is sort of like our Christmas in the sense
yeah,
where you know Halloween's that one time a year where it doesn't matter who you are, it's all of a sudden appropriate to have death and skulls everywhere. So that's something as a brand that we very much had a focus on. Was we want to be the if you're having a Halloween party, you know we want to be the beverage of Halloween. Reese's is the candy probably, and then we want to be the beverage, so that's for sure.
yeah. And was that kind of right from the beginning? Was that sort of what you guys thought? Like around that time, because I mean, it kind of goes, it fits in, right?
No, I think it's with any brand that you have, when you want to find strengths that you have and things that they always say, what can you own? Because you don't most it's usually not smart for a brand to try to invest a bunch in something that they're going to have a really hard time owning you know
Yeah,
Whereas you look at us, it's like, is there any other beverage that would make more sense for Halloween than Liquid Death? Probably not, or not many. It's like that's something we could absolutely own. There's not much competition around, so it's like you kind of you gotta you gotta go after those things when you see there's an opportunity to own something. Whereas
yeah,
like on the flip side, it's like people have asked us, well, how come you guys don't go way bigger and way louder about sustainability and cans? And it's like, yes, it's definitely a part of our brand. But at the end of the day, as a brand, we can't own aluminum cans. So
yeah,
when we spend a bunch of marketing dollars to tell everybody cans are infinitely recyclable, the minute there's six other canned waters, I'm using my marketing dollars to tell you why all these other brands are great too. You know,
yeah,
so it's like you have to, when there's eight other canned waters, why are people picking Liquid Death over canned Dasani or canned Fiji? Same reason people pick canned Red Bull over canned Monster or canned Rockstar or canned Bang. It's the brand.
yeah.
Yeah. So we always want to lead with Liquid Death as a brand and this kind of fun, you know, comedy, humor based ridiculousness that we really just are out to make people laugh and make stuff that doesn't feel like marketing but feels more like something you'd watch on Saturday Night Live or like an actual comedy show like that. That's how we want to market.
Yeah. And I've heard you say in the past, it's always kind of been about the humor, right? And that was sort of
Yeah.
something that, like how could you make your friends laugh? Like instead of kind of pushing a message or like advertising to somebody, it was sort of like, like
Yeah.
is it going to entertain you and your friends like at the end of the day, right? And then if you think like that and they do, then there'll be other people out there that do as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think so many people, when they're trying to think of marketing or they're trying to be funny, it's like they think of, oh, what would make all of these people laugh? And it's like, that's a hard thing to do. But if you just focus on, hey, like focus on one person, like, I don't know, a specific friend of mine, how do I make him laugh? If that works, it's probably going to make billions of other people laugh. And it's an easier way to kind of think about what you're doing versus trying to be like, oh, how do I make this certain demographic and laugh? It's like
Yeah.
you're probably not going to be successful there. Like you kind of have to. And the reality is, like, not everybody, like everyone thinks we're all so different and everybody laughs at something totally different. It's not really true. It's like people kind of laugh, like for the most part, a lot of people laugh at kind of the same stuff. That's why, you know, certain TV shows are massively popular and it's one kind of, and you see different kinds of humor. You know, it's like
Yeah.
everything from Seinfeld being insanely popular to, you know, Bill Burr being insanely popular. You know, couldn't be different in terms of the humor, but still mainstream popularity, which means there's a lot of overlap. It doesn't mean that half the country watches Seinfeld and the other half listens to Bill Burr. It's like, no, we all kind of share a lot of the same sense of humor when it really comes down to it.
Yeah. And it's kind of going like not going about it vanilla, right? I mean, because you guys got like, I don't know, you probably still do, but there was a lot of hate out there and people kind of not really getting it and, you know, sort of thinking that it was like, you know, like this isn't funny, this is too serious, or even like sending in like complaints and stuff.
Well, I think it's a good you bring that up because you say a lot of hate, and I think this is it's a thing that every company faces right now with the current state of social media. It's like, and just the current state of the internet. It's the folks on the extremes far and away make the most noise. Most of us who live in the middle, we're not super active in social media comments. You know, like we're just kind of watching the whole circus and enjoying it, right?
Yeah.
But the people on the extremes, they're the ones who are, this is the worst thing ever. Or they're also the people who are like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I'm never going to drink anything else besides this. Like those are still extremes, but those are the people that make all the noise. But when you look at, like, let's say a Liquid Death post on Instagram, it's like there might be 30 comments of people who don't get it, but you look at the likes, which is something that us in the middle can easily participate in. Like, hey, I'm not going to comment on this thing, but I can hit the like button. There's 12,000 likes. There's 20 negative comments. But reading the comments, they seem like a bigger deal because there's words, there's a person attached to it. But you look at it, it's like, oh, 12,000 to 20, what is that? Like 300 to 1 people are into this versus people who don't. So I think it's, and just even in the media too, it's like we live in a world now where I would say that most people, I don't care if you're left or right, really trust the media or think that they know what's really going on, and like they're trying to make money, and they're, you know, newspapers are going under, so that it's all about clicking and they need clicks, so they have to put out these things where it's a business more than it is this, you know, unbiased thing that news used to be. I think people know that. So it's like, oh, one press article comes out from somebody that's like, this is the worst thing ever. You think, no, how many people would say, oh, this journalist speaks for me for sure? Like nobody. So I think that's, and I think it's an interesting thing that's happening in the world. And a lot of companies are afraid of it because they're not really taking a step back to look at, okay, wait, what's actually happening?
Yeah.
Are there legitimate population who think this, or is it's just the loud extremes who are the ones that are showing up in your feed on social? Because again, the rest of like the bulk of the middle of the country, we're not big active participants in the stuff. We just kind of we have minor things. But now what they do is they buy or don't buy the product. And luckily we can show with our sales, like we're selling a shitload of product because people like the brand and
and with that mainstream, that's really interesting. I mean, do you reckon that was sort of like before you started Liquid Death, you were working for agencies, doing creative, and kind of going into these meetings with big brands? Were they're basically like, would you say they were kind of timid, or they were afraid to kind of push a certain message that they would then think that they'd get that opinion or that public opinion, right? They would kind of they'd be sitting on the fence a little bit, or they wouldn't want to take a chance on a certain idea, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, big companies, the way they approach marketing, I had always thought it just never made sense to me. And, you know, and big companies specifically, there's a lot of money at play. You know, everybody wants to protect their job. So they do the, you know, there's all this like testing that you can do for marketing. There's these companies that'll charge you millions of dollars to test your marketing. But it's like, how do they actually test it? oh, we're going to go find people willing to show up at some place, maybe sit in a room and react to something, or they have to opt into a telephone survey. And I'm like, and you look at this data, and they're getting this data that they're basing millions and millions of dollars on that may or may not actually be realistic for what the actual market would do.
Yeah.
And we would see that in marketing. They'd be like, oh, we tested this commercial and it tested really well. And they put it in the market and it totally fucking fails. Because it's like, it's a different thing when you're like asking someone questions about marketing. And think about, who are the kinds of people that agree to a marketing survey? Like, I say this to my team. People are like, oh, well, we have this testing and we learned this. I'm like, yeah, no, that's good that we know that, but take it with a grain of salt, because I'm like, how many people in this room have ever agreed to do a marketing survey? And it's like,
Yeah.
not one person. The people that kind of do, think about the kinds of people who are willing to do that kind of stuff. Are they really an accurate portrayal of like the masses, or like us, or the people that we think or are targeting to buy the product? Probably not. So there's always some learnings from there. But I think in these big companies, it's like nobody wants to be responsible for making a decision that loses a bunch of money. So it's like, hey, we tested it and it tested good, so my job's protected. And hey, we just did everything by the book. So because like, at the end of the day, people, their job is what they do from 9 to 5. They have families, they want to do stuff.
Yeah.
The last thing they need is another headache or risk or something like that. But at the same time, while that can help maintain something, or maybe have a very slow death, it's like, it's not something that is going to ever find innovation or
Yeah.
catching lightning in a bottle or hitting home runs. The brands that do that or have done that, they're doing something differently. And yeah, that was always why I was, kind of looking for my way out of agency world for a while, and always sort of knew I wanted to create my own brand to kind of do the things that I thought. I mean, I guess every great innovation they talk about, it's like, it usually starts with something that pisses you off. It's like, hey, what do you care enough about that it fucking gets under your skin and annoys the shit out of you? It's like, yeah, it's like, for me, it was how bad marketing was. It was just like, God, if I have to sit through another terrible commercial, like, I watch TV with my wife and we watch these commercials and she's like, seriously, like, there's a room of people that went through tons of ideas and they said, oh yeah, this is the one. And they went and spent, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on that. And it's like, and I think it's the one connective tissue between all the people who love Liquid Death. I think is that one thing that, and there's plenty of data showing it, is everybody hates marketing. It's like, it doesn't matter who you are. People hate commercials. They hate ads. They're willing to spend a premium to have like an ad-free service. Like, I'll pay $10.
They don't want to be sold to, right?
They don't want to be sold to. Yeah. And the way they're being sold to, it's like people think that they're literally like idiots or something. Like, really? You thought that was going to make me want to buy that? Like, do you think I'm that stupid? It's like they don't respect people. It's like they don't respect their time. It's like, hey, I'm buying this airtime for you to see this. So I don't give a shit what you want to see or don't want to see.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the message I want out there. And that's that. And it's like, well, if that doesn't work, then you're wasting your money. And I think that's the thing that, like, Liquid Death, at the end of the day, we're really kind of making fun of marketing and brands. It's like we're making, and I think people get that. And it doesn't matter if you like Skulls and Slayer or not. You get what we're doing, that we're making fun of marketing and that we're not taking ourselves seriously. And they respect that and want to support that, even if they're not a Skull person. That's not what it is. Like, they understand what the role of the Skull is, and they appreciate the role of the Skull, because it's not another big, bland corporate bullshit thing that seems like, it was created by a robot or something,
Yeah. But it was never about kind of, were you going to kind of channel it and try and target the people that are interested in metal or punk, or, it wasn't about that, right? It was kind of like that bond on the humor, I guess, and kind of making fun of this way that people are marketing. And
I think it was more about targeting people that have a certain taste in entertainment. So if you think, like beverage and CPG, like packaged goods, it's one of the few industries where it's overly rational, and there's not a lot of innovative thinking in it, and people take things very literally, where many other industries are not. For example, like people will look at Liquid Death and say, well, how is this so successful? Like, how's your water actually any better than the Dasani or whatever next to it, or the Fiji? But if you go into fashion, not many people question, why is Gucci selling a $900 t-shirt that's made of 100% cotton, just like the Target brand t-shirt? They solve the same purpose. They cover your torso, made of the same material. Why? How is anybody paying $800 for that shirt? Nobody questions that, because they kind of get it. Oh, it's a brand. It's supposed to signify something. They've spent all this money to have a reason why people want to be a part of this thing. It's very clear to people when you look at other industries. But in packaged goods, like they can't see it that way. They think too literally. So like when we think about another good industry is like the entertainment industry, like movies. Think about like a mainstream horror movie like Get Out by Jordan Peele. That was one of the biggest movies that year. But when that movie came to market, because it's horror and there's killing and death and gore, did they go out and say, we are going to target heavy metal guys, punk rock guys? No, it's like moms go to those movies, dads, kids, teenagers, metal dudes, rap dudes. Like, it's, when you think about entertainment is a way broader thing. It's not just literal, because the movie has gore, people who listen to gory music are the only ones who will like it. It's not true. So I think that when you think about it that way, it makes more sense of how we target people. It's like, find the kinds of people who would probably have this sense of humor, appreciate more of, I guess you would say like a darker, more reverent sense of humor. It's a wide range of people. And I mean, you look at some of our demographic stuff that we have data on, and it kind of shows that. It's like, maybe 60+% of our customers are like, 9 years old to 35. But then you look and it's like 45 to 60 is still almost 20%. Like, there's not many brands where it's like 20% of your business is people in their 50s. And the other, bit of it is people who are like 9 years old or 16 or 18. So I think, and I bet if you looked at similar demographic stuff for like movies, like either action movies, particular mainstream horror movies, I bet those demographics kind of look similar to ours. I would guess.
Yeah, we have like Rad Season is like festivals and events platform, and we've got maybe like 1,000 events on the site, and it's everything from like crazy like food, like fight festivals, Oktoberfest in Germany, things like that, music festivals, action sports events, and it's the same sort of thing. Like the range, you'd be like, okay, like you think it's like sort of 18 to 25 or 30, and it's sort of like, nah, you get these big groups who are sort of like, like emailing or kind of on the database, and they're in their like sort of late 50s, 60s, and they want to go to like a crazy food festival in Spain or something. And it's kind of, you just, if people, like you said, entertainment, and it's kind of, if that's what people, it's really, you can't really pigeonhole it. So
right. No, totally.
That's interesting, man. And like with like saying that, I mean, when you kind of started off the idea of building Liquid Death and building the brand, did you just think that, like water, that would be the first sort of thing, and then it would like eventually span out from there? Or like what were you thinking kind of back, I guess, in the early days? I guess it's sort of like 2018 time, like when you guys kind of started.
Yeah, no, we definitely started with water. And I think when you're going to start a company or a product, you definitely want to do all your homework first. Like, it's like, yes, we kind of had the idea of, yes, it could be cool to make this really funny, irreverent water brand. And it's like, oh, that's a great idea. Now let's go start researching that idea to see if it has legs, and then you start doing the research and it's like, oh, bottled water just passed carbonated soft, or not, just water in general, passed carbonated soft drinks for the first time in ever as the number one beverage category. It's like, and at that time, it was like water in the US was doing 20 billion in sales, which is more than energy drinks.
Wow.
So it's like, oh, wow, huge category. Lots of people are buying water. Got it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, look at all these water brands. There's a million of them, and they're all kind of the same. So it's like, oh, it would be kind of easy to completely disrupt this massive market because everything's the same. And then it's like, oh, and because, my background is marketing and brand, I want, you always have to give yourself a competitive advantage of whatever it is you're doing. Why are you going to make something and execute something way better than almost anybody else could based on your specific skill set and background? And since mine was marketing and brand, it was like, what is a category where most of the winners are determined by brand and marketing and not some other thing? And it's like, oh, of all things, it's water. It's like, that is purely something where the reason people are buying Fiji over, Essentia or Smart Water, it's all brand, and they have plenty of data to show that. So we just started checking all these boxes of like, yes, water, this idea we have has a ton of legs and really makes sense. And then it was, oh, and then plastic is becoming this huge issue and it's almost becoming like the new tobacco. And he started seeing more articles about how bad plastic is and that we've all been sort of, in a sense, tricked for decades that plastic is recyclable when it actually isn't. There's like stuff all over the internet about, the plastic lobbyist that started as early as like the late 70s when plastic was becoming really popular material and people started seeing, hey, this stuff is going to be a problem. They had to quickly put everybody at ease and be like, oh no, it's going to be recycled.
Yeah.
But what was happening was recycling has to be economically viable to do. So metal, like aluminum, stuff like that, goes to a recycling facility. They melt it down into these big bricks, and then they can resell those bricks at a profit for what it costs them to melt down. So it actually generates a recycling business. Plastic, I mean, what's a plastic bottle worth material-wise? Almost nothing,
Yeah.
So they take all this plastic in, they grind up plastic. Who is buying a bunch of ground up plastic and how much are they willing to pay for it? Nothing. It's like the recycling facility would go out of business. So the way recycling sustained itself for the last probably 20 years was that recycling facilities would send plastic and they would to like big container ships and they would be sent back to China. So China ships a bunch of goods into the US constantly, right? Yeah. Ships full of rubber dog poop and computers and everything else, right? They come here, unload it all. Now there's empty ships. They want to be able to bring something back. And they figured out, oh, China is willing to take all of our plastic garbage. We'll put them on these boats, ship them back to China. And then China would, it's not recycled, but they would downcycle it into like, polyester and these things like carpets, clothing, like stuff that actually has plastic fibers in it. But that's not really recycling because you don't then take your carpet and recycle it. It just gets thrown out. So it's like, oh, the bottles turn into this thing that just becomes trash. However, after years of that, China realized like we were sending them way too much plastic, and they were like, we don't want this anymore. Like, what stop sending us this. And then literally it was like 5 or 6 years ago, China said, we will not accept any more plastic trash from the United States. And that is when the recycling facility sent it to the ship, they could write it was recycled. So we had these things like, oh, look at the recycling rates of plastic. It's so high.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't really being recycled. It was just being put on a boat and shipped away to a faraway place. Now that they can't do that, they're doing the new studies where recycling rates are way down. And it's not because less people are recycling their bottles. It's because the recycling facilities, they're not actually recycling it. And now if they were to try to recycle it, they would probably go out of business. So they either when you put your plastic bottle in a blue bin, it goes to a recycling facility. They then put it on another truck and send it to a landfill because they would go out of business trying to recycle it. Or what they're doing is they're compressing them in these giant cubes and storing them in warehouses, waiting for something to do with them, where it's like, hey, maybe somehow this stuff becomes worth selling. Somebody will buy it off us. Or maybe China will eventually say, hey, we'll take more of your plastic. They don't know what to do with it. And then there was actually a recent article saying it's this insane fire hazard right now with all this stored plastic that if any of it were to catch fire, like somehow because how compressed it is, it would completely like go up in flames. So that was just something that, the more we kind of peeled the layers back of the onion around this plastic thing and realized what a problem it was. And then that kind of helped point to, well, aluminum is a much better alternative to plastic. Like, yes, in a perfect world, we would hope every single American from the small towns of South Dakota to the hipsters in LA, that we're all walking around with portable, reusable water bottles, and we're no longer buying packaged goods anymore. Yes, that would be the perfect world, but that's not happening anytime soon. And aluminum is a better alternative. And it just, it helped with the brand where it's like, oh, we can do tall boy cans that kind of feel like something you're not supposed to have, makes it more fun, but you're really just drinking healthy water. And yeah, all of these, people think sometimes that, oh, these brand ideas are like, they're just like an aha moment that happens, but it's like, it's a long time of like, like it's almost like you're carving a statue out of wood or something. It's like you're just kind of chiseling bit by bit, and eventually you kind of finally have this thing that's like, oh, that's so genius. What did you think of that in the shower? It's like, no, it took a long time.
And were they like kind of, like as things develop with the brand and with the audience, that and like with the buyers, then it would kind of feed into different like new campaigns as well, right? So it's kind of going from like with the like wasn't there like there was a like a plastic campaign that you guys did around cuties, and that was kind of with the stuffed animals, and so it doesn't kind of, would you say it like flows, doesn't just go off on tangents like depending on
what do you mean that I'm not sure I understand the question.
So with the different campaigns and with sort of marketing the brand, like does it sort of, I mean, is there like, have you guys got is there like a kind of long plan, like a 6-month, 12-month thing kind of leading up to when you're going to sort of do something, or when you're going to release something, or basically around a different timeline, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, in the early days, not so much. And it was more of we're just in the moment kind of doing things. Now we definitely think out a little more ahead, but not a crazy amount, because I think there's so much stuff that can happen, and I think one thing I've always been a proponent of is that in the world we live in now, like good ideas have a very short shelf life. It's like, how many times is it like you think you have this incredible idea that's so genius, and then 2 weeks later someone else does it? You're like, what the fuck? Oh, I just had that idea. And it happens so many times. Yeah, it happens so many times. And it's like, when you have a good idea, like you need to make it, execute it, and get it into the world as fast as possible, because there's a good chance someone else is thinking about something like that. And then once they put it out, then you're just going to be, now you can't, because it's like, oh, well, they already did it. It seems like you copied them. So
Yeah.
I think we always try to move very quickly with things and not try to plan too far ahead, because there's just too much stuff can happen in a long period of time.
Yeah. And moving quickly, I mean, would you say that's the same with like how that's kind of been in the kind of the back end of the company, would like getting like with the investors and then sort of raising, like all that's happened quite quickly, right?
Yeah, everything about the company has moved pretty fast. But I think any successful high growth company is moving fast. Um, so yeah, I think if you're not moving fast and you're a startup, you know, there better be a really good reason for why, you know, because momentum is everything. Um, and getting it is hard, maintaining it is hard, and then once you lose momentum, it's really hard to get back.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's everything we've built in our company is kind of around speed. You know, it's the one competitive advantage we have, like especially in an industry like beverage, where the big guys literally own everything. It's like Coke, Pepsi, Anheuser-Busch, uh, you know, Molson Coors or Miller Coors. They own 99% of the beverages that we see in a store, those 4 or 5 companies. And they own all the exclusive deals with stadiums and ski resorts. Like
Yeah.
every ski resort that's major is either in a Coke or Pepsi contract, where that mountain can only sell products that are owned by Coca-Cola or owned by Pepsi. Um, and that means any other brand like us, we can't sell there. So the only advantage we really have is speed, because these giant companies, they cannot move fast. Everything they do has to go through layers of approvals and
Yeah.
focus groups and things that would kill anything innovative anyway. So for us, like speed is the only competitive advantage we really have, outside of, you know, having an insanely good marketing team that could rival the marketing teams at any of these places. But speed is the thing that we've always prioritized, and it's how we have people think about things. Like, hey, it's better to get something done faster and not quite perfect than
Yeah.
waiting forever to like make something so perfect, and you're just taking too much time.
And I think a lot of people just kind of, or especially if they're starting a company or new project, whatever it is, they just, if they're thinking about it too much and they don't execute, you know, when like just to try and get it out right and
Yeah,
test it. And yeah.
yeah.
And how did you sort of build teams? Did you kind of bring on like different sort of senior executives into the organization, so people to kind of like head up marketing and head up like operations and the whole sort of retail side of it as well? And
Yeah, I definitely made it a point to focus first on finding people who were, you know, some of the best in the world at doing the things that was not my specialty or strength. You know, like I know where I bring the most value. It's brand, it's marketing, it's how do we like, where's that magic of the brand? It's ultimately what values the brand so high. You know, it's like why,
Mhm.
you know, why is Liquid Death worth a higher multiple of our revenue than Aquafina? Well, it's all the magic. It's our 4 million social audience that we've built. It's
Yeah.
the fact that people are actually tattooing, like 300 people have tattooed Liquid Death on their bodies and posted on social about it. You know, it's like all of that
Which
stuff
is
helps.
crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's, and that's the magic. That's the thing that Coke and Pepsi, they can't replicate that. It doesn't matter if they've
Yeah.
got $200 million. You can't replicate that. That's what's so valuable. So I know that I want to, you know, that's a lot of where my focus is. I'm not an operational calculus minded guy that's going to do that. I'm
Yeah.
not, I didn't have experience growing retail. How do you get into retailers? How do you sequence it? How do you execute? Like, how do you hire teams of people that are going into those retailers every day to make sure Liquid Death is on the shelf? You're getting displays, making sure that your competitor salespeople aren't going in there and paying the store clerk, hey, here's some free whatever if you move the Liquid Death out of the way. Happens all the time. And if you don't have someone in there monitoring that, you're just wondering how come all of a sudden we're not selling as well in
Yeah.
this particular chain. It's like, oh well, because your stuff's not even on the shelf, and you don't have someone there to know that it's on the shelf or not. So all that stuff, we went and found really, really great people and kind of trust them to run those things. I don't try to get, micromanage with them like you. And I
Yeah.
think it's a common thing you hear. It's like hire people that are smarter than you and get out of their way. Like it's a smart way to kind of, I think, build teams.
Yeah. And it's impossible to kind of, well, yeah, I mean, it's just impossible to kind of know all those areas, right? And especially
Yeah.
if it's sort of like, even if you haven't been in the beverage industry for years and years, even if you have, you can't do everything.
Yeah. Right.
And like,
So,
how did you approach it with like getting like, so there was like specific investors involved, almost like individuals who then kind of like act, I don't know, would you say almost like as ambassadors as well, for Liquid Death? So it's almost kind of like they've like invested early on, like whether it's musicians or athletes and stuff. And
yeah, it's like most of the quote celebrities that
yeah,
have invested in Liquid Death. I mean, they're relatively small checks. Like
okay,
so much of Liquid Death, our investment is built through you know institutional investors, very experienced investors who you know go through all this diligence to know how do they bet on companies, and they're choosing to bet on us and stick with
mm-hmm.
us. And when we raise more rounds, a lot of them, they want to reinvest because as they see the company being successful, they just want to put more money in. And those are some of the best investors when you've got people who believe in the brand and they've got enough capital where they can continue to help you. And it's not just, oh, they put in one time and then
Yeah,
that's it. Um, and then as we raise these other rounds, it's like we bring in like strategic folks, like because we've been lucky that because the brand growth and numbers have been so crazy, every time we raise a round, we have way more people that want to invest than what we can actually let invest. So we get to be very selective about who we bring in. And ultimately, if you don't need every dollar, like money isn't the issue. It's like, no, we have people want to give us money. Now it's like, what do you bring to Liquid Death besides just a check? How can you
yeah,
help us? Like, oh, you're connected to retail, you're connected to this, like you have relationships with these folks, like that. And I think that's also helped us is like we've been able to, bring in really great investors that understand what we're doing, don't try to get in our way, offer really great connections and relationships. Like that's all been a part of the success too.
yeah, yeah, sick. And with the merchandise model, I mean, that was kind of, I mean, most kind of when you think about say like a drink or whatever it may be, it sort of stops at like caps, t-shirts, hoodies. But you guys took a bit of a different spin on that, right? And kind of looked at like what kind of different products you can get. I just saw recently like the Liquid Death, the yoga mat, and
Oh yeah.
there's all these kind of like there's all these things going on all these different projects. And was that your idea like from the start, do you think, or like you kind of, or did it kind of evolve into we can kind of make these different products and like the metal like lunchbox and stuff like that, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many cool things like
Yeah. No, it was definitely an evolution. I think when we first started selling, t-shirts and sweatshirts, we really just thought about it like like bands do,
yeah,
like Metallica
or Maiden or something when you can kind
yeah,
of
yeah. It's
like
like how much, I mean, how much revenue they do from apparel. It's a
yeah,
huge part of their business. And nobody says to bands, well, guys, what are you doing trying to make t-shirts? You're songwriters. You have no business in fashion. Like why would you do that? No one asked that. It's very
yeah,
clear because I think when you have actual fans instead of consumers, it's like
yeah,
most beverage companies have consumers, meaning people buy this and drink this because it just happened to be there. Maybe it was on sale. It was the first thing that their hand kind of went to. Like, it's not like they're like, I love this brand. I'm tattooing this brand on my body. But you do see a lot of that with bands and
mm-hmm.
entertainment. People who are really into the bands they're into and who are really into the movies or
Yeah,
that they're into. And I think a big reason is because bands have a point of view. Movies have a point of view. It's like they're writing lyrics about certain things. You kind of know where this band stands and you connect with what they're saying. And now there's something deeper than just the chord progression of the song of why you love Metallica. And that's why you're willing to wear a Metallica shirt, because you're trying to tell the world something about your own tastes and that. But most beverage companies, they don't have a point of view on anything other than like 20 more calories or extra electrolytes. Like they don't stand for anything. So why is you're not giving anyone a reason to broadcast your brand because you don't kind of stand for anything. You don't have a point of view. So with a brand like Liquid Death, we have much more of a point of view where the average person, if you're like, hey, what kind of music does Liquid Death listen to? They could probably rattle off 3 or 4 bands. But if you're like, what kind of music does Coca-Cola listen to? You'd be like,
yeah,
I don't know. What kind of music does this brand listen to? You'd be like, I have no idea. So I think that's what made apparel work so well for us, because we actually had real fans and they wanted to broadcast their love for the brand. And, we took it very seriously, just like a band would. Like we work with really cool artists, it's not just sticking our logo on the shirt and calling it a day. Like we have that, but we have other stuff. And then it was like, because it's all about being funny, that started leading to, okay, well, what's a funny thing we could make besides a shirt? And, whatever that ended up being, we would do that. And then those things ended up selling way better than we thought. So then it was kind of like, oh, this brand actually has, like, people like to see this brand manifested in these unexpected physical ways.
Yeah.
And because I think we also live in this, like, we live in a culture now where I think collecting stuff is becoming a bigger thing, and especially physical things, because we live in this digital world where everything's digital. And it's rare that crazy internet ideas actually manifest into a physical thing. They're always like, oh, it's a crazy idea that's a video, or a crazy idea that's a GIF, but it's never these crazy internet things that become physical things. And I think that all of a sudden feels interesting and special and collectible. And yeah, it's something that we've definitely leaned into a lot more the last maybe year or so.
Yeah. And there's been some pretty big numbers as well, right? I mean, it's been like, was it like 3 million on merchandise and like outside of the beverages?
Yeah. Last year, 2021, yeah, we did about 3 million in all the merch and apparel stuff, and on track to double that this year. And it's been tough too, because with all the like COVID global supply chain stuff that's been happening the last 2 years, it's like you couldn't get t-shirt blanks, like where it's like, oh, we don't have any blanks, and like you're waiting what used to be 2 weeks, now you're waiting 3 months to get things. So we definitely had hurdles, like trying to actually produce on the level that we were hoping to do. So we had to navigate a lot of things, but still going well. And some of those things are starting to kind of work themselves out now and all that. But yeah, it's super fun. And we just started selling like Zoomies just started selling a Liquid Death t-shirt last week. And I think that's really exciting too, is like starting to put Liquid Death in actual like merch and apparel in physical retailers. Like Urban Outfitters started selling Liquid Death, and it blew away their expectations of how quickly it sold. And for us, it's like, it's just merch for us, because we're a beverage, or just like a band. It's like if Metallica has a shirt for sale in a record store, somebody is seeing that Metallica shirt that maybe isn't into Metallica and is curious about Metallica, or they love the shirt so much they want to buy the shirt, so now they're going to force themselves to like Metallica. So I think for us, it's another way into the brand, where even if you've never had Liquid Death, you like the shirt and think it's really cool, so you buy the shirt. And if you buy the shirt, next time you're in 7-Eleven and you see Liquid Death, there's a pretty good chance you're probably going to pick Liquid Death over Fiji or over what else. So
and where are you guys like what's the kind of, I guess, the direction now, like with this Series D round, and is it going to kind of spin off into new beverages or different locations? Would you like think of, sorry, but two questions in one. So would you think of like different countries, like outside of the US, or would you think of like what a different product range, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, the big kind of catalyst for the Series D was we launched the first Liquid Death flavored sparkling earlier this year, like late January, early February. Um, and it was a little bit of a different product category, not just for us, but in general in the market. We found this kind of white space where nobody was really doing anything because it was like the flavored sparkling category for the most part is dominated by, LaCroix, Bubbly, which is a Pepsi brand. They're
Mhm.
all these kind of zero cal, zero sweetener, zero sugar brands. And there was like memes on the internet about LaCroix where it was like, LaCroix tastes like somebody whispered a flavor name in the other room. It's like there's not really any flavor. And it was predominantly a thing for like calorie counters. Then there's like healthy soda on the other end of the spectrum
Yeah.
where it's, you know, artificial sweeteners or like just things like stevia or sucralose or all these things where it's zero calories, zero sugar, but they're trying to replicate that ultra sweet flavor of soda. There was nothing in between. It's like, hey, it's a little bit sweet, so there's way more flavor than LaCroix, but it's not like you're drinking a liquid ice cream sundae like a soda.
Yeah.
And so we put like 3 grams of sugar from agave in it to give it significantly more flavor than LaCroix and all the other stuff. But it was, there wasn't a lot of other brands doing that. So like, some of the early reactions from some of the retail buyers were like, well, I don't really get this. I don't see why you should put sugar in it. Just make it like LaCroix. We're like, no, we don't want to do that. And we have a lot of reasons why we don't want to do that because, so much of Liquid Death as a brand is about bringing new kinds of people into healthy beverages that weren't typically making healthy decisions. Like
Yeah.
we've seen people, the guy who goes and buys 2 monsters at a time from 7-Eleven, now he might be buying 1 monster and 1 Liquid Death. He like had never bought, bottled water before. Now
Yeah.
he's incorporating water into his day. That's great. Or we have parents who hit us up on social saying, thank you, Liquid Death. Finally, my 9-year-old is excited to drink water instead of soda or juice,
Yeah.
because they have this can that they think is cool or
Yeah.
bad and they want to drink water. And that's really the huge value that Liquid Death brings to retailers is when you put Liquid Death on your shelf, we're not just stealing market share from the other brands around it. We're bringing totally new people to the category. And that's really great for the retailer. So if we're like, hey, what's unique about Liquid Death, we're bringing 9-year-olds, construction worker dudes, like
Yeah.
all these folks who weren't typically premium healthy beverage buyers, we're bringing them in. So when Liquid Death makes a flavored product, we need to make something that still appeals to these people because most 9-year-olds don't like LaCroix. They're like, this tastes gross. Most like construction worker dudes don't love the taste of LaCroix unless they're on some kind of like crazy diet and they're forcing themselves to do something. So it's like we knew it had to have some flavor to it so that these folks who weren't typically in the category
Mhm.
would still enjoy the product as much as they like the brand. So yeah, it was we launched that. We were unsure how successful it was going to be. It only took 3 months of being on Amazon for us to be the #2 sparkling brand on Amazon, ahead of like
Wow.
$500 million brands.
Yeah.
Um, so we ended up like retailers who were kind of like on the fence or weren't sure when they saw the Amazon stuff. They all were like, we want the flavors. How do we get all the flavors? So then, we just, all these retailers wanted it. So, we actually were running low on product at a certain point because we didn't anticipate the demand and we had to kind of short some folks so we could kind of catch up to the demand. And I think it also proved a really critical, I think, Liquid Death strategy, which was Liquid Death is bigger than just water. Like it's a beverage company. It's like
Yeah.
we sold still water in a can. That did super well against Fiji and all these other bottled water companies. Then we did premium sparkling. That started doing really well against Perrier and San Pellegrino and all these premium sparkling water brands. Then we did flavored sparkling, which was almost more like a healthy soda, and that was beating LaCroix and Bubbly and all these other brands. So I think that's something. It made us realize, like, oh, there is truly demand for more liquid death innovation. Like, we only have 3 flavors. Like, a lot of these flavored sparkling brands, they have like 20. Like, we have 3. You know, and we're being very selective about how we roll stuff out. Like, next year we're going to release 1 new flavored sparkling, but then we're also going to be releasing liquid death iced tea next year. And it's like, yeah, so low sugar, same thing. Like, maybe 6 grams of sugar from agave in a big 19-ounce can. And, you know, in a category of iced tea that's almost like soda. Like, a lot of this iced tea has like 60
so much
milligrams
sugar,
of sugar. Yeah, so much sugar. Yeah. So yeah, and I think people, just early indications, like, people were really excited about the idea of liquid death iced tea, because I think people love the brand. Like, I love Liquid Death. Like, it's so cool what they're doing. It's so funny. But some people say, you know what? But I just don't like drinking plain water. You know, when are you guys going to do something flavored? I want to participate in your brand, but I'm not a bottled water person. And then it's like, oh, we made flavors. Like, oh, finally, you guys have flavors. And then some people are like, fucking love your brand, but like, I'm just not a sparkling water like, I don't really like sparkling water very much. You know, like, I don't, you know, regardless of the brand, I don't really like it. And then it's like, oh, we're going to make iced tea. Oh, if you make iced tea, I'm going to buy that every fucking day, you know? So I think it's like, when you build a brand, everybody wants to be a part of the brand, and you just got to create things for that more people can actually come into the brand because they are a huge fan of the product itself. And you're not just limiting yourself to a category.
Yeah, that's sick. And it's basically disrupting that healthy beverage, just the whole market, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what Liquid Death can be long term. It's like, we can kind of be this healthy beverage platform that eventually you build this trust with people, where they know, oh, when Liquid Death releases something, it's going to be healthy, it's going to taste really good, and it's going to have fucking hilarious marketing, you know? And it's like, if you can do that playbook a bunch of different times, it's like, yeah, you can have a single brand do all this stuff. And I always bring up the brand I think is one of the most underrated brands ever is Trader Joe's. And you know Trader Joe's, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a store where it's one brand across every single product. There's Trader Joe's frozen, you know, vegan hot dogs. There's Trader Joe's, you know, plant milk. There's Trader Joe's butter. There's Trader Joe's everything. There's Trader Joe's wine. And people are obsessed with it, you know, like my wife, especially, she's like, Trader Joe's. You listen to anybody talk about Trader Joe's, it's like, oh, like, they get so excited, like, they love Trader Joe's. And there's nobody been able to do that. Like, Whole Foods, their store brand, nobody cares about that, and they're fucking Whole Foods. You know, all these other grocery stores, none of them, their store brands matter. Trader Joe's, people love. Trader Joe's could sell their products in other grocery stores. It would probably outsell other things, but the grocery stores would never let them do that. But I think it shows that Trader Joe's has built a brand that's bigger than one specific product, and people are associating things with this brand. Oh, when it's Trader Joe's, they know it's going to be a great price. It's going to have kind of this quirky, cool packaging, and it's going to taste really good. And it's like, that's all you need to then make all kinds of different things that people will be very much into. So
nice. Well, it's going to be exciting seeing where it goes, man. And looking forward to the launch of the iced tea. And if people, if they want to kind of follow what you guys are up to, or find out about kind of what you're doing next, what's the best way?
Really, Instagram and TikTok, like, those are where we put most of our resources to talk about things, make funny things, you know, interact with people. That'd be the best way.
Nice. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Mike, thanks so much for your time, man. Thanks for coming on the show. It's been great chatting to you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Talk to you later.